Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. The Israeli military said they struck Syrian army vehicles in southern Syria's Sweda on Tuesday. It was the second such Israeli strike in as many days, and followed clashes between Druze and Bedouins in the area. The violence began on Sunday in the El Makus neighborhood of Sweda, following a series of kidnappings between the two communities, after a Druze man was robbed at a Bedouin checkpoint on Friday. In a statement on Tuesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is, quote, committed to preventing harm being inflicted on the Druze in Syria. The Syrian government announced a ceasefire on Tuesday, saying they deployed their forces to the area. However, Syrian Druze religious leader Hikmat el-Hijri dismissed the move in a video address, saying Druze are being, quote, subject to a total war of extermination, and calling on the community to resist. The plight of Syria's Druze has captured Israel's attention for some time. Netanyahu ordered the military to protect the community back in March, and Israel conducted strikes near Syria's presidential palace in May following a separate outburst of sectarian violence between Druze and Sunni Muslims near Damascus. Israeli Druze took to the streets on Tuesday over the situation facing their people across the border, and the Israeli military reported that several Israeli citizens crossed into Syria, though details are scarce. All this is happening amidst normalization talks between Israel and Syria's new government, aimed at de-escalating tensions between the two. The talks, mediated by the U.S., began after Israel moved into and began striking Syrian territory after the new government there, led by former jihadists Hayat Tahrir Hashem, came to power in December, overthrowing longtime ruler President Bashar al-Assad, and Ahmed Ashara became new president. In this episode, we hear from Al Monitor's Israel Pulse columnist Ben Caspit. Ben, who wrote an analysis of the situation for Al Monitor on Tuesday, provides insights into what type of deal Israel wants with Syria, why the security of Druze is so important to them, and how the latest sectarian flare-up will influence the normalization talks. Hope you enjoy. Ben, welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me here.
Ben, what did Monday's strikes in Syria accomplish? Are they meant to be symbolic in defense of the Druze in the country, or are they more significant than that?
First of all, since I wrote this morning a new feature for Al Monitor about this issue, many things happened. The last few hours, dozens of Israeli Druze from the Golan Heights came into Syria, across the border, and they're going to help their brothers. And right now, while we speak, the IDF is trying to bring them back safely. And it's a drama because if you listen to the Druze in Israel and in the Golan Heights, by the way, it's not the same Druze. The Druze in Israel are veterans. They are Israelis since 1948. The Druze in the Golan Heights were captured by Israel in 1967 and then annexed. And in the last 10 years, they feel Israelis, total Israelis. And now they're trying to engage the riots in the what we call the Mountain of the Druze and try to help their brothers. And the IDF is trying to cool the situation and bring them back. And about your question, the attacks of the Israeli Air Force came to signal all the parties, the regime forces, the local Bedouins, of course, the Druze, and the ex-jihadists that joined this party to signal all of these parties that Israel will not allow anyone to commit a massacre among the Druze community. The IDF is torn between the fact that we have to help the Druze because they are the brothers of our brothers. Our brothers, I mean the Israeli Druze. And the other interest is not spilling too much oil on this fire. And we are trying to be somewhere in the middle and stop and stabilize the whole situation. Right now, in the last with the last event that I just described, I'm not sure that this mission will be accomplished.
And Ben, we've seen some seemingly progress in the talks between Israel and Syria to de-escalate and potentially, establish some sort of relationship. What type of deal does Israel want with Syria? And how do you think this recent violence in the last few days will affect those negotiations?
This is a tough one. First of all, I have to tell you that Israel is longing, craving, yearning the Assad regime. And I'm talking about Assad the father, Hafez al-Assad, the president, because since the end of the Yom Kippur War in 1974, the border between Israel and Syria was the most quiet border Israel ever had. The President Assad was a stabilized leader. He wanted the quiet in this border, and this is what we had. We did not have peace, but we did not have war, no terror, no one single gunshot in this border until the war in Syria, civil war in Syria, erupted many, many decades later. So we miss Assad the father, and we also miss Assad the son until this war that finally also drove him out of his office and of his regime. Israel wants to stabilize Syria. Israel needs a quiet Syria. Israel wants some kind of autonomy to the Druze in the mountain of the Druze. Let the Druze control themselves and be their own peacekeeping forces. With the President Ashara's forces above them, but not interfering in their internal business. And we also want a safeguard that no heavy weaponry or jihadist elements will be between Damascus and the border. I don't think Israel is talking right now about peace with Syria because there is no Syrian leader that will agree to accept the annexation of the Golan Heights and sign peace treaty and normalization. I think both sides will settle on an interim agreement, something that will be maybe the second part of these agreements that were signed in 1974 when the war was ended. Maybe normalization without calling it normalization, maybe coordination in all the security issues, even supplying Israeli natural gas. Thing we do with Jordan, with Egypt, and with Lebanon to Syria without an embassy in Damascus, but making sure that no jihadist with a disguise or without will get close to the Israeli border. And right now, what we saw in the last couple of days since this violence erupted is things that remind us the good old days with ISIS. With all these Toyotas and all these guys with the black scarves on their faces, calling jihadist slogans, and even Khaybar Khaybar Ya Yahud, and everyone that knows the history knows that this slogan mean that we are the army of Muhammad and we're going to kill you all. So this is what Israel wants. I don't think it's a lot different than what Ahmad Ashara wants.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Ben Caspit after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al-Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al-Monitor to follow what leaders and decision makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25, for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Ben, something you alluded to earlier. What are Israeli Druze leaders demanding Israel will do in Syria, and how much importance does the Netanyahu government place on the views of the Israeli Druze community and their leadership?
Yes, this is another very good question because you have to know the Druze community in order to understand them. The Druze are people that don't have a state, like the Kurds. But unlike the Kurds that wants a state, the Druze don't want an independent state, and their historic behavior is we are coping with the local regime. We are loyal. We are not making any problems. We live with the regime. We fight with the regime. But the only thing we want is to be loyal citizens and to be Druze. And in Israel, the treaty between, we call it a blood treaty, a blood alliance between the Druze in Israel and Israel is began before the establishment of the Israel is independent before 1948, and it exists until now. The Druze are going to the IDF in huge percentage, more than ordinary Israelis. The graveyards are filled with the Druze war heroes that were killed in all the Israeli wars, all the wars in the history of Israel. So the Israeli government, every government, is obliged and is committed heavily to help the Druze while they are in trouble. And after saying all that, you have Druze in Lebanon, Druze in Syria, Druze in Israel, and they are one. They are brothers and sisters and uncles and nephews. And when the Druze in the Jabal Druze, it's in Arabic, it is the mountain of the Druze, and it is a place that is located 60 miles from Israel, not very far. When they are under attack, the Druze in the Golan Heights and the Druze in Osfia and Majd al-Shams and all the other places in Israel feel that they are under attack. And it's not only being polite or a political slogan. It's for real. Last time it happened, it was during the civil war in Syria, when a lot of jihadist organizations were fighting along the border between Syria and Israel. And these were very, very tough days filled with blood. When Druze also tried to cross the border and help their brothers and sisters, the IDF stopped it, but we accepted many wounded Druze to be treated in Israel. And now we have another session of this, and every government in Israel, and of course the IDF. You have Druze officers, even high-ranking serving in the IDF. We are obliged of defending the Druze. If you ask Sheikh Muwaffaq Tarif, the spiritual leader of the Druze in Israel, and he's saying all the time, we want the IDF to act, and not only through the Air Force. We want a military operation. We want boots on the ground. We want ground forces going to El Saidna and saving our brothers. And right now, what's happening is something in between. You don't see ground forces invading Syria and going to Al Saidna, although Israel keeps many forces within Syria since the establishment of this regime. But you see Air Force acting and attacking many targets that try to go south and hurt and harm the Druze. And Israel is actually trying to run in this rain, between the rain, and stay dry. It is a very complicated mission. Right now, there was a ceasefire that was declared, but I don't want to go into these details. But even the Druze in Syria are divided to three fractions. One of them is not cooperating with the regime. This is part of the problem, and I don't know who will bring us part of the solution.
Ben, thanks a lot for your time, and we look forward to more of your analyses on this topic.
Thank you, Adam. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Al Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.